from Mexico. It is the afternoon of day 2 of our trip. It's 3:30 and yesterday we got in kind of late. We got in at like 1 and then we couldn't get into our room until 3, so we just spent the afternoon exploring the property and getting settled in. And honestly, it's been raining since we got here. Like, it has been pouring rain all day. So we've been just trying to make the best of it. We went to the beach a little bit yesterday and just tried to get in little tiny patches of sun, but I think that it's gonna be clearing up after today. So I'm not too concerned because it is what it is, you know, it's a tropical destination. It's gonna rain sometimes. But yeah, I'm gonna make myself a cup of coffee because I just had a little nap, which is so unlike me. I literally never nap, but I guess the rain just puts you in that kind of mood. And I will make a coffee and then update you on my reading, which is Changing All-Stars by Kwame, Adjei-Brenyah. I'll give a little discussion. I'm not super far in, but I'll kick off this vlog. But first, we need coffee. It's not ideal, but we did what we had to do. It was from a little coffee maker. It's what we had to do. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple more chapters and then I will let you know how I'm feeling about it. Okay, hi. So I have started reading Changing All-Stars, and I did read a bit of it yesterday, a bit on the plane, but honestly did not get very far. I am currently on page, I think like 55, yeah, 55. So barely into it. Okay, let's talk about this. So, if you don't know what Changing All-Stars is, this takes place in an alternate version of our world where they have this television program called Changing All-Stars, in which imprisoned people can sign up to participate in a death match. It's a one-on-one gladiator style death match, and if you move up the ranks, if you win enough times, you can be given your freedom. It follows 2 women who are participating in the Changing All-Stars program, and they are 2 of the most lethal warriors, and they also happen to be lovers. This book is a critique on the American criminal justice system, systematic racism, and probably a bunch of other things that we're going to come across. Things like capitalism are obviously at play here as well. So I have read this author's previous work, which is a short story collection called Friday Black. So I'm pretty familiar with his writing style and kind of the way in which he writes his satire. He's always critiquing capitalism, and in both Friday Black and in this book, he's calling out big corporations and how they invest in continued systematic racism and other humanitarian issues. The writing style in this book and like the satire, the way that he does it is he kind of gives alternate names to these corporations, but they're still easily identifiable. So you know that it's kind of taking place in this other worldly kind of like uncanny valley type of reality, but it's very clear what he's talking about and what he's critiquing. So a couple thoughts early on into this book. One thing, so this is a deathmatch book, which is something that just deathmatch media is really popular, and I don't know if this, I don't know what his actual intentions were. I mean, I think it's like pretty obvious that he is playing on the popularity of the Hunger Games specifically because the names of the characters kind of sound like something from the Hunger Games. He has his own version of like the Caesar Flickerman, who's the announcer for the Hunger Games, like stuff like that. So I do feel like it's kind of playing on the popularity of that series specifically. I think that's like an added layer of satire, but I don't know. I could be wrong. It could just be like his style is very similar. I don't know what's going on there, but to me, it does feel like he is talking through the popularity of that series in particular, and of course other deathmatch media like Squid Game and other ultra popular stories that have this element to it. But the reason that I do feel like it's inspired a lot by Hunger Games specifically is because of the star-crossed lovers element. I don't know if I'm gonna give spoilers in this reading vlog. I'll definitely like let people know if I'm gonna say anything spoilers, but I don't know if I will or not. But I will say that like it's not clear yet that these two women are gonna have to fight each other, but I feel like that's very obviously the direction that this is going. Another thing about this is that it is very brutal right away. Contrary to the Hunger Games, where it takes like 100 pages or something to get into the games, this starts out right away. Like, I'm 50 pages in, and a vast majority of so far has been the death matches. It is very brutal, and it's definitely hard to read, hard to stomach. And in fact, that's why I've been going so slow through it. I actually have not decided if I want to, like, I'm not going to DNF it. I'm going to keep reading it, but like, I can't decide if this is the time and place for me to be reading this. I actually did bring a backup book, which is The Unmaking of Farrow, in case this one was like too intense. And to be honest, like it is intense. I'm kind of struggling just to be in the headspace to read this, but I know that it will be worth it, and it is a valuable read, and I do want to read it, so I'm like really trying to push through in that regard. But yeah, it's intense right off the bat, and like I think the author is responding to that thing that everybody's like, oh, we want the death, the violence right away when we pick up a death game media. And he's exploring that critique as well of like us as the audience wanting this violence. And that's like explored in the same way that the audience in the book wants the violence. There's a lot of critique right away. You know pretty much the direction his critique is going. But with that being said, something that did surprise me is that the book follows a ton of different perspectives, including from a protest group that is protesting the Chain Gang All-Stars. It follows the people fighting in it. It follows an audience member. It follows the Caesar Flickerman character. And I'm sure it's going to follow a bunch more. So it's adding all of these perspectives, which really adds to the discussion and the depth of everything that's going on in here. Of course, it's talking about capital punishment. It's talking about racism. It's talking about violence as spectacle. It's talking about what we desire as audiences. It's talking about capitalism in all senses. There's just so much in here. And again, it's only been 50 pages. So I am enjoying this. Like, I do think it's good, but it's like also really hard. And lately I have just not been doing well with sad or difficult, violent books, which normally I don't have a problem with. So just for some reason, something just this month I've been not in the headspace to read this sort of stuff, but I'm gonna keep going because it's good. Like, it is good. It's good in a very sad and violent way. So we'll see. I mean, I have that. I do have Unmaking of Farrow, but honestly, like, if I stop reading one and pick up the other word, like, I'm not going to accomplish anything this week, which October's already been kind of rough for me, so that's where we're at right now. But yeah, so we will press on with this. I'm interested to see where this is going, but I have a feeling I already know. It is day 3. I hope you can hear me. It has been a struggle to try to find a place that I can film this. Like, I wanted to film it not in my room again, so at least it's visually interesting. But outside is hard because there's wind, there's music that's copyrighted that I can't have in the video. There's, of course, people walking by. It's hard to find a nice place, but I do have a reading update for Chain Gang All-Stars. I'm about halfway through it, and yeah, I have a reading update. I read 100 pages yesterday, and I'm trying to get through another 100 pages, or maybe even more tonight. I think the book is like 385 pages, so I don't think I can finish it today, but I can get really, really close, which was my goal, so that's good. Okay, so halfway through the book, and definitely I have a lot of thoughts. I have so many thoughts. Trying to process them all. I'm also like sweating. Okay. My thoughts. The thing that really jumps out at me is it is very, very, very similar to Hunger Games. And I just keep thinking, like, is this intentional, or is this just a product of like a deathmatch game? But like the television show aspect does make it really feel like Hunger Games, and just everything that comes with the television aspect. I know that, you know, Squid Game had an element of like, oh, this is all being done for entertainment, this cruel, terrible entertainment piece, but the fact that it's like a TV show and the way that they like create storylines, like it feels very Hunger Games. And to me, that's not like a bad thing. Like, it's not, I don't think it's a bad thing if a lot of this was inspired by the Hunger Games, or if this is some sort of response to the popularity of Hunger Games. Like, I think that's you know, I think that's really valid. Like, this to me feels like a grown up Hunger Games. It's like for the people that read Hunger Games when we were teenagers, young teenagers at that, like middle school is when I read it. So the idea is that this is taking the elements that we all enjoyed about the Hunger Games, but actually forcing you to think critically about the issues. Like, yes, Hunger Games did have a lot of valid societal critiques in it for being YA. It did. But this pushes that even farther. Another thing that this does that, you know, contrary to the Hunger Games, it offers a ton of perspectives from a lot of different people, from kind of all angles of this issue, which is ultimately the American justice system and to some degree capital punishment. I guess, yes, capital punishment, obviously, but it's a lot more than just should capital punishment exist. It's really delving into everything wrong with the American justice system and institutionalized racism and just everything to do with how our current society treats minority races. Like, honestly, it's really a large issue. It's larger than just capital punishment. But it engages with it in so many different angles that I really think flesh out the concepts and the thing. Because, like, yes, it is a story, and there are characters, and there is a plot, and like all that is interesting. But ultimately, it's asking you to think about all the different angles for these issues. And I think that the multiple perspectives really work. And sometimes I don't like multiple perspectives, or sometimes I just feel like it's unnecessary, or like it's kind of a cop-out as a way to get to all those answers. But in the case of Chain Gang All-Stars, I think it really does work. I'm very happy with this, and I just continue to wonder, is this supposed to be directly responding to Hunger Games? In my opinion, it's okay if it is, and it's okay if it's not. I'm just curious. Like, I can't wait to go and read the interviews with this author and see like what really is the intention here. As far as how much I'm enjoying it, I'm definitely enjoying it a lot. I can't tell right now what I'm going to rate it, which is so unusual. Usually I know right away what the book is going to be, but in this case, I don't know, because on the one hand, I think it's doing a lot of really clever and interesting things. It's bringing up great discussions. I really like where it's going. But on the other hand, it is such a hard read at times. It is very depressing and sad, and that's the idea. It wants you to come face to face with these issues. So, I mean, I definitely am enjoying it insofar as such a tough subject matter can be enjoyed. And also, I don't know, like, maybe you just really have to be in the headspace for it, but definitely it's a grown-up Hunger Games. It really is. So I think that people who enjoyed Hunger Games are obviously going to enjoy this. I think it'll really do what it's setting out to do, and so far I'm enjoying it a lot. Okay, well, I'm off to enjoy the rest of my day, and look at this beautiful Mexico. So beautiful. All right, I will see you later. Hello. I read a bit more, not as much as I would have liked to, because I was too busy having fun on my trip, just enjoying the scenery. It's so hard. Like, whenever I go to the beach, obviously I want to read my book all day, but also I want to look at the ocean, which is the reason I'm there. So it's a constant battle. But got a little bit farther. I really wish that I would have been able to like highlight and tab, because there are so many lines in here that I'm just like, I want to highlight that. And I don't even highlight and tab in my usual books. It's just, this book has so many lines that I'm like, that should be highlighted. Very, very good. Ooh, this book, man, it's very good and it's very emotional, and I just like don't know what I'm gonna rate it. Like, I am enjoying it, but also it's so tough and sad, which is normally a good thing, but I don't have that gut 5-star. Like, it feels like a 4.5 or 4.75 or like as close as you can get. But you know, like when I rate 5 stars, which is not often, like it's virtually never, it is a gut feeling. So I'm like, what about this is not giving me that gut feeling? Because it's getting really close, like really, really, really close. I think it could be a 5-star. I'm just being weird. I don't know. There's no reason I think that this is not a 5-star. I don't know. We haven't got to the end. I have this much left. Okay. Let me finish this. It's my last night of my trip. Which is kind of making me emotional all on its own, so. All right. Let me finish this and get back to you. Hello. Oh my gosh. I have just finished Chain Gang All-Stars, which means that I completed it while I was on vacation, which I'm very happy about. I have a lot of thoughts about it, and like I cannot process them all right now. Like, I think I need to sit with this, but I am thinking that I'm giving this 5 stars, which is very shocking. I mean, I knew it was going to be good, and I had high hopes that it was going to be really good, but I you know, you just never know. I saw that Jack Edwards actually gave this book 2 stars, which I'm gonna need him to explain that one because I don't get that at all. I was like between a 4.5 and a 5, because normally when I give it 5 stars, it's like a gut feeling. And I don't know that I felt necessarily a gut feeling, but at the same time, there's like nothing wrong with this. It's pretty much perfect in every way. And the more that I think on it, and especially the ending, I really didn't know what I was going to rate it until I got to the end. But I got to the end and I'm like, okay, this can be 5 stars. So yes, I finished this. I'm going to think through my thoughts and then give a proper wrap up. But in the meantime, I do have another book. I'm at the airport right now, so I only have a couple hours on the plane to read it. But I am going to be starting this one, and we'll see how far I get. I wish I could have finished Chain Gang All-Stars earlier, so I could have maybe finished 2 books in this time, but it is what it is. I finished one, and it was really, really good, and it was one of my most anticipated of 2023, so I'm happy for that. And yeah, we're gonna start this one and see what happens. Hello, I have made it home, and I'm much tanner, my goodness. After a couple days in the sun, I've made it home, and it's time to wrap up this vlog with a couple updates. Yes, I'm going to be talking about Chain Gang All-Stars, but also yesterday at the airport and on the plane, I actually finished The Unmaking of Farrow. I read this in one day, so I will talk about this one as well. Starting off with officially wrapping up Chain Gang All-Stars, I've had some time to decompress and think through all this, read some reviews, see what people are saying, just thinking about this even more. And yeah, I mean, everything that I've already said, it still stands. I think it's brutal, but it's so brilliant. I absolutely love the writing style. It's very unique and definitely has a certain kind of voice to it. It feels satirical, but also very serious, which I think is a very unusual mix of things, but it really worked for me. It's very blunt in what it is critiquing, what it's talking about, but with a subject matter that is so intense, I think the bluntness really adds to it. And just the element of us as the reader being directly involved in all of this violence, like it's really asking us as the reader, like, do you want to see the violence as much as the audience members in the television show want to see it? And I think that's a really unique thing that it does and it asks you to do. And what I find interesting about this book is that it starts off with the violence right away. And I wonder if that is a response to often readers pick up books that have a death game, or they have an action plot and people are like, when are we going to get to the action? Like, it's taking too long. This really starts off with a bang. And it was a bit of a shock at first for me. I was like, whoa, this is a really intense book. And of course I was reading it on my vacation. I was like, okay, not exactly a beach read, but it was intense at first. But then it slows down and explores everything that's going on. And that's when it really, really worked for me. I don't necessarily need to see the actual death game. Like, I'm more interested in the discussions and the build up to it. And I think when it got to that, that's when it really just started to sink in for me. I mean, what is so well done about this is like the pacing, the plot, the action is where it needs to be, and the breaks are as long as they need to be, and it gives you time and space to breathe and decompress, but it gets right back to it. And each chapter just moves so fast. They're short chapters, they jump around in perspective, and each one is just hurtling towards this crazy climax. Like, it is so well paced, and the story is just so well plotted. Like, I think structurally this is so well done. I mean, I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I have settled on, like, yeah, I'm confidently giving this a 5 stars. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I think the only thing I would say is that it's just a tough read. Like, it's emotionally very hard to deal with, but it's good. It's good. So I'm so happy that I did get to this, and I'm also very proud of myself. This was one of the books that I bought at Barnes & Noble. I bought 3 of them. I bought this one, I bought Monstrelio, and I bought Romantic Comedy, and I bought them in August. And it's so rare that I actually get to the books that I buy within a couple months. So after having read this, I officially read all of the books that I paid full price for. So I'm really, really happy about that. Unfortunately, the other 2 were not as much of a win for me, but this one absolutely was. So very happy with that. Yeah, I would say if you are a person who can handle the violence that's in this, it's well worth the read. I had a great time, and also a sad time. I had a good sad time, but I will be recommending this and probably thinking about this a lot into the future. Okay, moving on to The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. So like I said, I did read this in a day. I whipped through it pretty fast. With that being said, it was not necessarily because I was really enjoying it. I just felt like I kind of was able to get through it because I knew what was going on very quickly. So what this is it's sort of fantasy, it's kind of magical, but it's actually closer to sci-fi. Like, I would say it's sci-fi, except that it's like the sci-fi is brought about for a magical reason. So it's like kind of sci-fi fantasy, but essentially June Farrow is a part of a family of the Farrow women who are all cursed with this madness. They just at some point start developing this feeling that they are seeing things that aren't there. They're hearing voices. They just start developing this madness that eventually, like, they completely just can't function. And she starts to feel this coming about, and she wants to figure it out. She wants to put a stop to it. She doesn't understand what's going on with her family. So she's on a quest to figure that out. At the same time, her mother also disappeared years ago, and she has a feeling that these 2 things are related. So she's on this quest to figure out what happened. That is the synopsis that's on the book jacket. But the reality is that synopsis is just the inciting incident. The rest of the book is the result of her discovering what's going on, and then it's this kind of big adventure, long drawn out thing, and it uses a sci-fi trope, and I'm not going to say what it is because it's not listed on the book jacket, and I'm not going to say what it is, but it does use a sci-fi trope that hardly ever works for me. It's tough. It's hard to make it work for me. And this book kind of falls into the same trap that a lot of media that uses this thing falls into, which is just that, like, it is a little bit convoluted. Some things are overly convenient. I was trying not to think too much about the mechanics of what was going on, but at the same time, it asks you to think very hard about the mechanics of what's going on. So that was a bit frustrating. And normally I wouldn't be so nitpicky about that, except that for me, I just did not feel that the prose and the characters were endearing enough to make up for the fact that it was a trope I don't really care for. Well, not that I don't care for it, it's just like, it takes a lot. It takes a really, really, really good writer to make it work, in my opinion. This was my first Adrienne Young, and I had heard that her writing is very atmospheric and just like a really nice prose, and unfortunately, I found it just like pretty bland and simplistic. Like, I found it pretty run-of-the-mill. It's also told in first person, which is not something that I like unless it's being done to a very specific purpose. And I didn't feel like it was really being done to that purpose here. I felt like it was just, I mean, it makes it sound like any other book written in first person. I didn't feel like the prose was especially captivating. So yeah, now all that being said, it sounded like I really didn't like this book. That's not true. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fine. I think it's just kind of a story I've heard before. I kind of saw where it was going. I felt like I knew the twist before I was supposed to, and that kind of made it like, okay, like, here we go. It also falls into a trap that I absolutely hate, which is like, when the reader is reading something and you have a question, you're like, oh, I would just ask this question, but the character doesn't ask it. That is so frustrating for me. If I am coming up with the questions that the character needs to ask, and if I'm coming up with the answers before the characters, I'm not happy with that. And that happens a lot in this book. I think like a lot of people will like this because it kind of has a touch of romance. It's very whimsical, magical. Like, it's supposed to be heartfelt. I felt it kind of artificially heartfelt. Like, I didn't feel like the emotion was as strong as it thought it was. But I mean, I think that people will like this because it's kind of sweet, and like it's got this tiny magical element, but overall, like, I don't think it's meant to be taken as seriously as I was trying to take it. So maybe I just probably wasn't the reader for this. I definitely didn't hate it. I gave it 3 stars. So like, it was a perfectly fine read. It was just not for me. So I read it. I'm happy I read it. I'm happy I read Adrienne Young. I'll still probably eventually try to get around to Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young, because I'm still interested in that one, and I didn't hate this by any means. I just thought it was just okay. I just thought it was kind of run-of-the-mill, kind of unmemorable. I'll probably forget it immediately. But I'm happy to have read it. So I will be probably unhauling this one. I'll give it to someone who I feel like it would be better suited to than me, but nonetheless, I'm so happy because I ended up getting through 2 books on my trip, which that was my goal, and I almost didn't make it. I can't believe I read this in 1 day. Wow. But the fact that we got a 5-star, an anticipated 5-star that actually ended up being 5-star, it's nearly unheard of, I have to say. It's nearly unheard of in my world, so I'm happy about that. All right, there we go. That wraps up my trip to Mexico. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Have a great day, week, month, year. I will see you back here next time. Thank you so much. Bye.